Well, hey everyone, welcome to another coach tip video. As you know, I'm Dan Foster, the Chief Operating Officer and an executive coach here at Building Champions, and it is so great to be with you today. I'm joined by my fellow executive coach and good friend, Dr. Drew Lawson. Drew, it's great to be with you, bud. Thank you for being here with us.
Yes, always a joy. Looking
Good.
forward to it.
Yeah, man, me too. So today we're going to be talking about a belief that sits at the core of really everything we do at Building Champions. And it's this belief that better humans make better leaders. And for us, Drew, that's more than a slogan, it's a mindset. And so I'm excited to talk to you about it. You ready to jump in and we can get after it
Yes.
with some questions? All right. So, better humans make better leaders. When you first see that, you might be like, okay, that's a statement. Maybe it's a principle of building champions. But for us, it really is. It's a deep foundational belief and it's a mindset. And so I've talked to you before on these coach tip videos, and you talk about how beliefs that we have as a leader are really a part of our leadership operating system that we have. So help unpack that for me. What do you mean by operating system, and why is that so important for leaders to understand?
Yeah. It's a better leadership isn't really about kind of the new strategies or the skills we have. It really is. It starts with that inner operating system,
Yeah.
and that is a forged neurochemical pathway that is embedded in our psyche, so to speak, in
Yeah.
our brain chemistry. And
Mhm.
as Daniel
Yeah.
Harkavy says, leadership is the decision we make and the influence we have. Well, if we are functioning from that belief system, that hardwired internal operating system, then that's where all our decisions come from and all our influence comes from.
Yeah.
So if we have that right, we make some great decisions and great influence with our team. But if that inner operating system is old and needs to be renewed or changed out,
Yep.
that's what we need to focus on.
It's sort of like I've heard Coach Todd on our team say that it's sort of like you trying to run. Can you imagine running your phone on iOS 1.0 when I think they're on 26 something now, right? If you don't upgrade that operating system, then you're going to struggle to know how to engage and to lead effectively, I think, in today's world and as things change with the types of people that you're leading. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I guess if you'd give me some space to nerd out a little bit
Nerd away,
on
buddy. Go
the
for it.
well, I think that this idea of an inner operating system, looking at neuroscience a little bit, looking at the brain is a prediction machine,
Mm,
and so it doesn't really perceive reality objectively, believe it or not.
mm,
What it's really doing is it's predicting reality based on prior beliefs and past experience. And so oftentimes we're not aware of that, and we need to be aware of that. And
yeah,
um, the brain is constantly asking, what do I already know and believe is true? And then filtering evidence to confirm that.
yeah.
So that's why that operating system is so important to get a handle on and understand.
Great. So if I could try to de-nerdify that just a little bit in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if I come from a leadership journey background where I had a very toxic team that I was a part of, and every time I went into a team meeting, I got nervous, I got anxious to walk into that conference room because I didn't know whether maybe I'd be criticized or I'd be praised or whatever might happen. It was just toxic and unhealthy. That might follow me even after I leave that organization and go to another team. And I go into my new company's leadership team meeting. When I put my hand on that doorknob to open the conference room door and walk in there, I'm going to have a flood of things happening in my brain that might tell me fight, take flight, freeze, fawn, whatever it might be. And I'm going to, all of a sudden, those neurons and narratives are going to start piling into my brain to where I'm going to start to experience something that may or may not be the reality of what I'm walking into. And I might judge that meeting based on what I've experienced in the past. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yes. And I would say that's incredible insight. And insight is so important for this, is the
Yeah.
awareness that there's an operating system kind of driving all of this.
Hmm.
However, I'm often challenged myself as a coach, and I think this is a good challenge for all of us that do leadership, is insight alone doesn't change the belief.
Mm.
And oftentimes what we do is we say attaboy to ourselves or to our direct reports and say, wow, you've got that incredible insight. You know, Dan, that is the inner operating system that you're running. That's really
Yeah.
great. However, that doesn't change the behavior. So what I want to talk about a little bit, if we get a chance, is like,
Yeah.
what are some tips and tricks to actually change that behavior?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So before we get there, I think what I'm hearing you say is that more than skills, and maybe even more than behaviors, if you will, it's our beliefs that really drive the effectiveness of our leadership. Am I saying that correct, or what do you think about that when I say it like that?
Yeah, I mean, our beliefs are hardwired neurochemical pathways that are forged when we're young or when we're old, but they're
Yeah.
forged. We're in a rut.
Okay.
And the only way we can get out of the rut is not just with the insight that we're in a rut, but with some other tools and tricks that'll help us get out of those ruts.
Right. Because we have to, I got to assume that part of insight is, and probably let's maybe get to some of these practical steps, but I'm assuming that one of them is probably going to be taking the time to really identify what are my beliefs as a leader and how are those beliefs impacting how I show up. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and if we dive into that space,
Yeah.
let's just take for example an operating system, an inner operating system that you may have as a leader, which is not uncommon for a lot of the leaders that I've worked with over the years.
Yeah.
What it People are broken, they need fixing, and they're not really doing the best they can right now. So let me get involved, and we know that operating belief
Yes.
has an impact on us and others. And in fact, we know that oftentimes, and I hear this often,
Hmm.
the impact it has on the leader is get out of the way. Let me do that. You don't know what you're doing,
Yes.
and that's a belief. And that belief is an example of a belief that's hardwired that gets in our way.
Yeah. And if you're not careful, you can create, like you were saying, a reality that's not, it's an alternate reality to what other people experience. They're experiencing you as someone that is maybe micromanaging, disempowering them to do the work that they need to do. But you're sitting there going, I saved the day. No one else could do it. They needed my help, and I had to come in and take charge and do it. And that's two different perspectives there for a leader and maybe their direct report in that regards.
And it's exhausting for the leader,
Yeah.
and it's disempowering for the direct report. And then the
Yeah.
leader says, "This lazy person's never going to figure it out." Well, it's because of your belief system, your inner wired belief about them that
Yeah.
they're not going to figure it out.
Okay. Great. Great. So before we get into the practical steps, let me just kind of recap what I'm understanding. If we're going to be better humans, and by being a better human, we become a better leader, it really starts with us on the human side of understanding what are those core beliefs that drive how we show up in our leadership. So better humans make better leaders. Well, it starts on the better human side of really understanding your beliefs, your thoughts, your thinking, your feelings, and what's driving that. That's that inner operating system, like you talked about, that drives how we show up as a leader. Okay, so let's talk about practical steps then. What can people do? Because I mean, just listening to this, I know I need to rewire some things probably. So, what are some things I and our listeners can do to rewire their operating system?
Yeah. So, four things come to mind. First one is interrupt the old one.
Okay.
And the way we interrupt our old operating system is by first and foremost just being aware of it, noticing that it exists. That's a huge part of this. It's a great victory. The second thing is naming it and connecting your body to it, which sounds a little weird, but it turns out that our brain and our head are attached to our bodies. Some of us don't want to believe that.
Right.
Um, and so there's probably, without you knowing it, and let's keep going with the I'm assuming that my direct report is broken, I need to
Yeah.
fix them.
Yeah.
There's probably a posture that happens in a very like a microsecond before the belief even shows up. And they've done some research on this. And that posture might be my arms crossed
Okay.
or my face being angry or
Err.
my hands clenched.
Mm,
There's a posture connected to this old behavior. So get connected with it.
okay.
Name
Yep.
this operating system you want to interrupt,
Yep.
and then be connected to the posture, because I promise you, the next time you're in a meeting with Sam or whoever he is,
Yeah.
your posture is going to show up that way, and you're going to go, "Oh, look at that! That's a reminder
Good.
that I'm in
Yeah.
this old operating system."
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So interrupt the old one,
Yes.
which starts with noticing it. It's self-awareness, right? And
Yes.
then the second one was naming it. Like what is happening there? Explain the naming it part again. What am I naming exactly?
You're naming the behavior. You're naming
Okay.
what the belief is showing up like.
Okay.
And
Great.
oftentimes it'll be with a posture linked to it.
Okay, so to name it, it might be, man, I'm micromanaging him again. Why am I doing that? And I got to think through that. And when I show up, like you said, I might have clenched fists, I might be like this, but I'm giving off body language that that person probably is seeing. So they're probably like, "Oh crud, here he comes again. Dan's about to micromanage me, disempower me." And it causes their probably operating system to flip just a little bit as well. So
Yes.
yeah. And then
Yep.
was there a final one or did I get all of them there?
Yeah. Well, that's the first step, is interrupting the operating
Oh, that's it.
system.
That's the
This,
first step. I love it. Okay,
yeah.
let's go to the
Okay.
second one. Good.
The second one is strengthening the new operating system.
Yes.
And
Okay.
so I currently have this one operating system. My new operating system might sound like people aren't broken. They don't
Mm,
need fixing.
yep.
And I'm going to trust that they're doing the best they can with the resources and skills they currently have.
Yeah. Great.
Even saying that out loud makes it feel like I feel like my arms are out here instead of like,
Yes.
crossed.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so again, choosing a wiser belief and connecting it to your posture, like we talked about. Maybe that posture is one where your arms are open and you enter the room with Sam
Mm,
with that posture, because that's going to signal to your brain, I'm doing something different right now.
love it. Love it.
The
Great.
other thing that very few people do under this, kind of change out the operating system, is they're not intentional. We don't do intentionality very well. How often are you in the morning thinking, I have a meeting with Drew and I need to show up in this way. I'm going to take a minute and visualize how I want to be in that meeting.
Mm,
And people think some of this neurochemical stuff's a little woo woo, but the reality is they've done studies on visualization, and
yeah.
visualization is almost the same as actually playing a piano. You can
Okay.
visualize playing a piano, and then they'll get people in front of the piano and they'll play that piece of music
Wow.
almost
I
as
love that.
well as if with their hands on the keys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
visualization makes a big difference. So take the time to visualize how you want to show up, the new operating system, because that's a way of patterning your brain to show up in a different way.
Great. Great. Love that. So interrupt the old one, strengthen the new one through some of these things. Okay, what's next?
And this is a big one. This is deliberate practice.
Okay.
The idea of you've got to practice this. You've got to
Yes.
make the new operating system your default.
Mm,
And for this context, the idea of, they're not broken, they don't
yep.
need fixing. I made up an acronym for our discussion, which is
Love it.
BARK. Maybe bark instead of bite. And um, the B is, next time you interact with Sam or whoever it is, breathe first.
Mm, yeah.
Take a deep breath and just
Love it.
pause for a moment. The A is, ask a question to Sam, questions that are empowering, like,
Good.
hey Sam, you came to me with this question or how to do this. how would you do it first? Let's talk about how you would do it.
Okay, good.
Start with an ask instead of a tell.
Mm,
The R is an old classic, right? Repeat what you just heard,
yes. Yep.
because that solidifies their understanding and their knowledge. And the K of Bark
Hmm.
is, hey Sam, what do you know? What
Okay.
do you know? What are you learning? What's the learning that's going on? So that's Bark.
I love that. I love that. Okay. B is take a breath, breathe, calm down just a little bit, get yourself centered, and then start with by asking a question. And then repeat what you hear in terms of an answer of that question is the R. And then the K is what are you learning? What do you know from this? How are you growing out of this? Okay, great.
And
Bark. I love it.
honestly, if you practice that in and
Yeah.
of itself, you're rewiring your brain, and Sam is actually getting the empowerment and the trust he needs to actually be better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So interrupt, strengthen. You've got the bark method. Anything else we can add here?
Well, one is just more something that I've learned as well is the idea of having a thought experiment.
Okay.
Um, you know, Try this for a few days, and just assume every person is doing the best they can with what they've got and act accordingly. And
Mm,
then journal a little bit. Take a few notes about what are you noticing about yourself and what do you notice about the other people around you when you make that assumption, when you
mm,
use that kind of belief system.
yeah. It's almost, there's another, I've heard it say like assume positive intent. Is it similar to that where you're assuming they have positive intent? Or I think you said you assume they're doing the best with what they can. Is that a similar idea there?
Yeah, it's taking that new operating system and taking on the road with you and trialing it out and just experimenting, saying,
Yeah,
hey, I'm going to step into every meeting for this week, assuming that everybody's doing the best they can with what they've got.
man, I love that.
Yeah.
I love it because I shouldn't say you, I naturally have a tendency to think who's going to be in that meeting, and I start to play out perhaps a negatively, like they sometimes show up as this, or what if they do this, and then I create this whole fake reality of how they might respond, and that throws me off my game. So I love the idea of just assuming that positive intent. And then I love bark. I'm going to come back to bark. I'm going to be barking all day long, actually. So, and our English friends will know that that means that you're crazy and mad. So, so all right, my friend. Any other practical steps before I ask you a kind of our final question here? All right, good. So, what does transformation in this area really look like? Like, how am I going to know I am doing well here? I'm rewiring my operating system. How do I know when that transformation happens?
Well, I think one thing that comes to mind is transformations. It's not an event. It's a practice.
Okay, good.
And so we need to the practices we just talked about are really grounded in neuroscience. They're shaped by compassion and a heart for getting better,
Yep.
and they're really sustained by being a little courageous and vulnerable and starting that process. And I think out of that comes true transformation.
I love that, man. I love it because my natural tendency is to define what success looks like. What will the finish line look like? And what you just said was, hey, this is a lifelong journey. Becoming a better human so that you can be a better leader is all about becoming. And there is no end point to it. We're always learning, we're always growing. So thank you, Drew. I really appreciate that, man. This has been great. I love the insight that you bring, especially from your medical background. And just thank you for helping us unpack this really from a deeper mindset and belief standpoint. So, for those of you that are watching, if you heard today's conversation, I really hope that it gave you something to reflect on, maybe even challenge you to how you think about your own growth, your own operating system. And we know now from talking to Drew, leadership isn't all about skills and tactics. It really starts with who we are. at a head and a heart level. And so better humans really do make better leaders. And I love that we're all becoming that and striving to become that. So if you want to know more about Coach Drew and how he works with clients, head on over to buildingchampions.com. You can learn about our company. You can learn about Coach Drew there. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. And if someone you know in your world and your sphere of influence could benefit from what Drew and I talked about today, man, please share it with them, pass it along. Sometimes just a single conversation can spark a life-changing shift for someone in their operating system. So, Drew, thanks again, my friend, and I really appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, always a joy. Thank you.
You bet, bud. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.